Welcome back to the channel. This is part 26 to Road to Becoming a Champion chapter 26. The Sylph Company part 1. The group had just arrived in Saffron City, the largest city in the Kanto region. It had only taken them a few days to get here from Celadon. That isn't to say the route between the two places had been uneventful. Ash had acquired a new Pokemon and friend in Primeape, who was just as strong as it was mischievous. Ash and Serena had also made sure to train their Pokemon this time. Serena in particular had wanted to train her new Eevee. The only problem was Eevee seemed more interested in playing and tackling Serena than battling. It seemed Serena now had a second Pokemon that was a handful after Jigglypuff. Hey, Brock, Misty. Would any of you guys happen to know the kind of things Saffron City has to offer? I mean, it is a really large city, Ash asked as the group entered into the busy streets. Well, aside from a Pokemon gym and a battle chateau, this place also has a fighting dojo and many companies known across the world. The most famous is the Sylph Company, Brock answered. Don't forget all of the various department stores and malls, Misty added. The Sylph Company and fighting dojo, Ash mused to himself. What are they? This city used to have two gyms, the psychic type gym led by Sabrina, and the fighting type gym led by Kyo. The fighting type gym lost its gym status when they were completely destroyed by the trainers at Sabrina's gym. Now it is just a fighting dojo where trainers can help their Pokemon get stronger through tournaments. The winner gets to choose between two rare fighting type Pokemon, a Hitmonlee or Hitmonchan, Brock explained. What about the Sylph Company? Ash asked again. You've never heard of the Sylph Company, Ash? Misty asked in surprise. No, Ash replied, clearly not knowing how famous it was. The Sylph Company is the very reason people are able to become Pokemon trainers. You have them to thank for making Pokeballs, Pokemon medicine, and all other kinds of Pokemon merchandise, Misty said. I see. It might be a good idea to check that place out while we are here, Ash decided. Can we stop by the Pokemon Center first? Serena asked, speaking for the first time since the group arrived in Saffron. Yeah, good idea. I just hope we can find it in this maze of roads and buildings, Ash replied. That's what my map is for. Brock grinned as he pulled it out of his backpack. As soon as the group entered the Pokemon Center, they saw a very familiar face sitting on the sofa with a crowd of cheerleaders around him. Gary? You're still in Saffron City? Ash exclaimed. Yo, everyone. It looks like you all made it to Saffron City, after all, Gary smirked in an arrogant tone. Of course we did. I got the rainbow badge while I was in Celadon City, too. Ash declared as he showed Gary his rainbow badge. Big deal. I got that badge a while back. Only great trainers can win the Marsh badge, Gary scoffed. What do you mean? Ash asked. Sabrina is the gym leader here and trains psychic type Pokemon. She was by far the most difficult gym leader I've faced. Defeat her, and then I might call you a worthy Pokemon trainer, Gary answered in a cocky tone. That comment really made Ash's blood boil. What would it take for Gary to recognize Ash as a competent trainer? Don't forget, Gary. You promised me a Pokemon battle when we last saw each other, Ash reminded hotly. I only said that to get you off my back. I don't have any interest in battling you, Ash, Gary replied. What? Ash exclaimed in anger. Their conversation was interrupted when Nurse Joy and Chansey came out of the back with 6 Pokeballs on a table. Here you are, Gary. Your Pokemon are as good as new, Nurse Joy said kindly. Thanks, Nurse Joy, Gary replied as he took the Pokeballs and clipped them to his belt. He then turned to the group. Well, I've been in this city long enough. It's time for me to head for Fuchsia City. See you guys later. You really aren't going to battle me? Ash muttered, somewhat hurt that Gary was blowing him off like this. I think you are a better trainer than I first made you out to be, Ash. You aren't terrible, but it's just I have yet to see firsthand any proof. Once you can show me you are a great trainer, I will be more than happy to have a battle with you, Gary replied as he headed for the door, the cheerleaders starting to chant his name as they followed him. Now you wait right there, Gary, Serena shouted angrily. She was not just going to sit by and have Gary act like this to Ash. Gary stopped in his tracks and turned to give Serena an inquisitive glance. Serena, he asked, somewhat surprised she had shouted at him like that. Ash has challenged you to a Pokemon battle twice now, and you have refused him both times. As a fellow Pokemon trainer, you should be more than happy to accept it whenever Ash challenges you. You are acting like a big jerk, Serena continued, not letting up on her glare. That's right. Brock and Misty agreed. Pick up Hi Pikachu, Pikachu added. Guys, Ash trailed. He was touched his friends were sticking up for him. Seeing the intense glares that everyone was giving him, Gary finally let out a sigh. Okay Ash. I'll give you a one-on-one Pokemon battle, because I'm in a hurry. Take it or leave it, he said. You're on, Ash yelled with a renewed sense of determination. He was finally going to battle Gary Oak. I'll meet you in the field at the back of the Pokemon Center. You can come whenever you are ready, Gary muttered as he and his cheerleaders passed the group. I can't wait to show that Gary, Ash seethed. Just remember to relax and focus on the battle. Don't let your feelings towards Gary get in the way of your battle like what happened with Paul, Brock told him. Right, Ash nodded. Ash and Gary were now standing on opposite sides of the battlefield facing each other with determined expressions on their face, particularly Ash. Misty, Serena, and Gary's cheerleaders were off to the side acting as spectators, while Brock was in the center acting as a judge. This will be a one-on-one Pokemon battle. There will be no time limit and the trainers will continue to battle until their Pokemon are unable to begin, Brock declared. Go Squirtle, Ash shouted as he threw his Pokeball to release the turtle Pokemon. Heh, I see you caught your own Squirtle, Ashy boy, Gary smirked. Since you chose Squirtle, I'll choose this Pokemon. Growlithe, go. Gary's Pokeball opened to reveal an orange-colored dog-like Pokemon with black stripes and a cream-colored stomach. A Growlithe, huh? Ash said as he and Serena pulled out their Pokédexes. Growlithe, the puppy Pokemon. A very loyal Pokemon who will bite and bark to repel intruders, the Pokédex is informed. Gary is going to choose a fire type against a water type, Serena asked in confusion. You should know by now that just because Squirtle has the advantage doesn't mean anything. There have been several instances where Pokemon have overcome the odds if their Pokemon are strong enough, Misty reminded. Okay, Squirtle. Let's start things off with Water Gun, Ash called. Counter it with your Flamethrower, Growlithe, Gary yelled. Both Pokemon launched their respective attacks. They collided in mid-air. Ash thought the water would be able to push through the fire, but he was proven wrong as the attacks appeared to be evenly matched. Once the attacks were finished, all that was left was a bunch of steam. Gary must have a very powerful Growlithe. You stig, Growlithe, Gary tried. Growlithe quickly dug a hole in the ground and jumped inside it. Squirtle remained on the lookout and tried to see if it could feel any movement underneath it. Growlithe could come up anywhere. Soon Squirtle could feel movement coming up just beneath its feet. Squirtle prepared to jump out of the way, but soon the movement stopped and shifted to just behind it. Squirtle had been tricked. About a second later, Growlithe burst out of the ground and rammed into Squirtle, which sent it flying, but that wouldn't stop it. Quick, Squirtle. Turn around and use Water Gun, Ash called. Squirtle twisted its body in mid-air, so it was facing Growlithe once more. It then launched out the stream of water straight at Growlithe. The puppy Pokemon and its trainer were both surprised at how quickly Squirtle was able to recover. The attack struck Growlithe and pushed it back, causing it to howl in pain from the super effective attack. That was awesome, Squirtle. Now use a flying rapid spin, Ash commanded. Squirtle then hid in its shell and started spinning very fast while it was in midair. It soared towards Growlithe, who was still trying to recover from water gun. Heads up, Growlithe, Gary warned, but it was no use as the shell struck Growlithe in the side, which knocked it onto the ground. Squirtle stopped spinning and landed on the ground to give a thumbs up at Ash and Pikachu, who returned it. Let's finish this off with one more rapid spin. Ash yelled happily. He was actually winning against Gary. Squirtle got a running start and leaped into the air, and once more it began spiraling towards the tired Growlithe. Gary wasn't going to let that happen again. "You spite, Growlithe," Gary yelled. Growlithe opened its big jaws and actually caught Squirtle in its mouth while it was in rapid spin. Growlithe's head jerked back slightly from the impact, but it held on tight. It then began to viscously swing its head back and forth. Squirtle, the turtle Pokemon, cried in agony as it was caught between Growlithe's sharp teeth. "Try to break loose, Squirtle," Ash cried, but it was in vain as Growlithe had too tight of a grip. Growlithe then threw Squirtle out its mouth as hard as it could. Squirtle hit the ground rather hard and let out a groan of pain. "Now finish this with takedown," Gary ordered. Growlithe then charged forward and slammed into Squirtle, which sent it airborne once more. Squirtle landed on the ground and moaned in pain once more. It didn't get back up. Squirtle is unable to battle. "The winner is Growlithe," Brock declared. Ash sank to his knees. He couldn't believe it. He wanted to beat Gary as much as he wanted to beat Paul, but he just lost the only battle Gary had accepted from him so far. He returned Squirtle to its Pokeball and smiled sadly. "You battled really well, Squirtle." "Thank you," he told it. "Oh, Ash," Serena mumbled sadly as the cheerleaders cheered. She knew how much winning this battle would mean to Ash. Gary returned his Growlithe and thanked it for a job well done. He then walked over to Ash. The raven-haired boy continued to stare at the ground, unable to look Gary in the eye. What Gary said next to Ash surprised him, however. "You did a good job, Ash. That was much better battle than I thought it would be," Gary said as he spun Growlithe's Pokeball on his finger. "Really? I lost, though?" Ash asked in amazement as he looked up at Gary. "That's true, but it was really close. One more attack and my Growlithe probably would have been knocked out." "I really did enjoy our battle," Gary replied. Ash searched Gary's eyes to see if there was any hint of sarcasm or arrogance, but there wasn't. Ash could only see sincerity. "Wow. Thanks, Gary," Ash muttered in shock. "I'm sure if you keep training your Pokemon as well as you have, you will be able to reach the Pokemon League," Gary continued as he held out a hand for Ash. Ash accepted the hand and Gary pulled him to his feet. "Now that I've had the battle with you, I have to get going. I'll see you some other time," Gary said. He then turned to Serena. "Take care, Serena. Good luck with your Battle Chateau challenges." Gary then turned to walk away with his cheerleaders, but something stopped him and drew his attention as well as everyone else's. There was a woman screaming for help as she was running through the field. She was being chased by two men in a black uniform. They were Team Rocket grunts. "Team Rocket!" Ash cried in alarm. He then turned to his faithful partner. "Use Thunder Shock on those two Team Rocket members to help that lady." Pikachu nodded and leaped off Ash's shoulder. It unleashed its electricity with perfect accuracy. The grunts were so focused on capturing the woman that they didn't notice the group or the electricity flying towards them. They were shocked by the electricity before falling to the ground, knocked out. "Great job, Pikachu," Ash praised as he and everyone else ran over to check on the woman who was panting heavily. You saved me." Thank you so much," the woman said between breaths. "There now. Take it. Slow and easy. You're all right now, miss," Brock said gently as he put a comforting hand on the woman's back. The woman soon stopped panting and calmed down. Ash then decided now was a good time to see what was going on. He had to know what Team Rocket was up to this time. What was with his and Team Rocket's paths always entwining? Excuse me, ma'am. Why were those Team Rocket members chasing you? Ash asked curiously. I come from the Sylph Company. I'm the secretary for the president, the woman answered. Wow. You're actually the secretary? Serena exclaimed. I am, the woman confirmed. Something terrible has happened. Team Rocket has taken over the Sylph Company. They what? The group exclaimed in horror. Even Gary Oak looked alarmed at this bit of news. He had never had any run-ins with Team Rocket, but still knew they were a dangerous criminal organization. It's true. They broke through our security and had members posing as guards and workers for weeks now to fool everyone, the secretary continued. They just took over a couple of days ago. When did you escape? Ash asked. I barely managed to escape just now. Team Rocket learned of my escape and chased after me while I was trying to seek help. That's where you found me, said the secretary. Why doesn't the police or gym leader do anything? Misty asked. That's the problem. Team Rocket has such a hold on the Sylph Company right now. All phone calls are tracked and monitored by members of Team Rocket. Our workers are locked in rooms day and night forced to work on our latest project. To make matters worse, our president is locked in his office with the boss of Team Rocket. There is no way to get any word out about our company's predicament, the woman explained sadly. That's terrible. Serena gasped. I don't get it. Why would Team Rocket want to take over Sylph Company? Gary spoke up for the first time. They want our master ball as well as control of all of our other merchandise, the secretary replied. A master ball? What's that? Ash asked curiously. It's a special Pokeball that our company has been working on for a while now. It is supposed to be able to capture any Pokemon without fail, no matter what it is. We were nearing its completion at the company, and Team Rocket must have found out through their infiltrators. I can only imagine the terrible things they could accomplish if they were able to capture any Pokemon with the Master Ball, the secretary said worriedly. We can't let that happen. Team Rocket has to be stopped, Ash muttered with determination as he and Pikachu nodded their heads at each other. What are you saying, Ash? Serena asked. We are going to Sylph Company to stop Team Rocket. Ash declared. Were you hit in the head, Ash? That's crazy to take on that organization. Gary yelled. This isn't just a few rockets we are dealing with like in the past, Brock warned. There are bound to be far more there than even the power plant in Celadon City. It's true. The whole building is full of Team Rocket members, the secretary confirmed. Then what are we supposed to do? Ash cried. We need to go with the secretary to the police station and inform them of the situation as fast as we can. Brock advised. This can't wait. Ash argued. Saffron is a giant city. There is no telling how long it will take us to get the police and back to the building on foot. How is storming the building any better, Ash? Misty fired back. That's so dangerous and reckless. Oh yeah. Ash retorted, turning to glare at her. What if Team Rocket finds out we got the police? What's stopping them from kidnapping or killing all the workers and the president as revenge before the police arrive? Nobody had an answer to that. They certainly weren't going to put a horrifying action like that past Team Rocket. I say we split up, Ash finally decided. Half of us help the secretary and go with her to the police station, and the other half of us stop Team Rocket at Sylph Company. The rest of the group thought about what Ash had suggested. It didn't seem like there were any better options at the moment. Okay, but who is going to do what? Count me in, Gary said. You're going to help, Gary? Ash asked in surprise. Of course, Ash. This is a serious matter. I hate criminals just as much as the next person, Gary informed. Then, how about you, Pikachu, and I go to Sylph Company while Serena, Misty, and Brock go with Secretary? Ash suggested. No. I'm going with you, Ash, Serena said firmly. I don't agree with that, Serena, Ash replied. I'm beginning to think going to Silph Co really is too dangerous, and I don't want to put you in that sort of danger. I don't care. Serena cried as she shook her head. Don't you know that I'm just as worried for you as you are for me? That's exactly why I don't want you to come. Ash argued. At least I'll know one of us will be safe if you don't go with Gary and me. That isn't going to work. I'm tired of standing by on the sidelines while you rush into danger. I still remember the time you were almost killed by a flock of Spiral on our first day as trainers. I'm not letting you do something like that again while I'm around. We are in this together until the end, remember? Serena shouted. Everyone stared at Serena in surprise. They hadn't seen her get this upset in a very long time. We should take her with us, Ash, Gary finally said. The more people that are with us in Silph Co, the better. Ash stared into Serena's beautiful blue eyes and saw nothing but a rare fiery determination in them as she stared back into his brown ones. Serena had proven to be a strong trainer, if her past battles were any indication. She has also encountered Team Rocket, just as much as Ash had, so there is no doubt she would be of help against them. Ash gave a deep sigh. Alright, he relented. Come with us to Silph Co, but please stay safe. Thank you, Ash. Serena said sincerely. Just know that I can't keep that promise if you can't. I know, Ash replied. That's what worries me. Be careful. The two guards outside Silph Co may look like regular guards, but they are really Team Rocket members in disguise, the secretary warned. Right, Ash nodded. Gary then turned to the cheerleaders. You girls wait here at the Pokémon Center. The great Gary Oak and his accomplices will return. Gary is so brave, the cheerleaders cried as tears ran down their faces, causing everyone else to roll their eyes. Okay, Ash. Misty and I will go ahead and tie up these two rockets and then head to the police station. We'll hurry as fast as we can. Brock said. Thanks, Brock, Ash replied as he and Brock clapped hands together. You three better still be in one piece when we come back or else. Misty threatened, but they could tell that she was only saying that because she was worried too. Hehehe. We will, Misty, Ash responded. At least, he hoped so. Once the three trainers and Pokémon reached the Silph Company, they stared up in awe at how big it was. It seemed to be about 11 stories tall. They could see two guards at the entrance to the building with stern expressions on their faces, just as the secretary said. For Team Rocket grunts, they really did look convincing. Despite the very busy streets of Saffron City, nobody was paying them any mind as they all believed it to be nothing new. How are we supposed to get in with those guards there? Serena asked. I'm not sure, Ash replied. If we attack those two guards, we will only draw unwanted attention to ourselves. It would make it look like we are the bad guys, since everyone thinks they are evil. There has to be a back door. There is no way a building this large could only have one entrance, Gary realized. There is a small alleyway off to the side. Maybe we can find another way in over there, Ash pointed out. The group made their way over to the side of the Silph Co building and looked around. For such a grand building that Silph Co was, it sure had a creepy alley. The group continued all the way to the back of the building and peered around the corner. As expected, there were a couple of guards at this entrance too. The group figured they were also Team Rocket members in disguise. The difference here was there wasn't anyone around to see what the group was about to do. Pikachu, you know what to do, Ash whispered. The rodent silently nodded to Ash and went over to the guards and gave them an innocent expression. It then smiled and waved at them. What the heck? What is a Pikachu doing here? One of the disguised rockets muttered in confusion. Who cares? Beat it, you little rat, the other guard yelled. Seeing how Pikachu wasn't moving, the guards got angry. Heh. Since you aren't listening, we are going to have to hurt you, the second one growled. They pulled out some Pokeballs that were hidden from view, but Pikachu was faster. Pikachu, the yellow rodent yelled as it gave them the shock of their life. The rocket guards were so startled, they didn't have time to cry out in pain before they were knocked out from the electric shocks. Great job, Pikachu, Ash praised as he and the other humans came out of hiding. Now let's get in there. He went to turn the doorknob, but found it was locked. It wasn't that big of a surprise, however. They then felt around the knocked out grunts' uniforms to see if they could find any keys but found none. That isn't any problem, Gary said. We can have our Pokemon help us knock down the door. I'm sure the workers at Silph Co will forgive us, since we have good intentions. Right, Ash agreed. They then released their Pokemon that could help break down the door. Ash released his Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur. Serena released Chola and Nidorina. Gary released his Wartortle, his evolved Squirtle, Growlithe, and Nidorino. Diverting his attention from the other types of Pokemon Gary had, Ash ordered everyone to charge at the door at the same time. The people and Pokemon ran forward and rammed into the door with all their might. The good thing was the door was knocked loose, but the bad thing was that it also caused a loud crash as the door hit the ground. The group lost their balance and spilled into the room one by one, causing quite a commotion. The group groaned in pain as they got up from the floor. Once they recovered, they hastily returned their Pokemon and jumped to their feet. They quickly looked around or listened to see if anyone had heard or seen the loud crash. To their fortune, it seemed like the room was vacant at the moment. The room they were in was a small room with a few tables, chairs, and a small fountain in the middle. There were a few doors off to the side as well, and a staircase and elevator that would lead upstairs. I think it would make sense for us to take the elevator to the top floor, Gary suggested. That is probably where the Team Rocket boss is at. There is no reason to take the stairs and face all of the rockets that are here. Good idea, Ash agreed. The group was just about to head for the elevator when they heard footsteps running down the stairs. It seemed like they had been heard after all when they broke in. They hurriedly ran through one of the nearby doors and discovered it was a janitor's closet. They all managed to get in the room and close the door just as the footsteps made it to the room. What the heck? What was that awful crashing noise down here? I could have sworn I heard something. One of the voices, a man, spoke. Look at that, another voice exclaimed. The door has been busted down. Someone unwanted must be in here. We have an intruder. The group gave nervous glances at each other once the supposed Rocket member said that. It seems things just got a whole lot worse now that they've been found out. They would have to be extra careful now that Team Rocket knew the Silph Company had been infiltrated. They couldn't believe they forgot to put the door back in place. We need to inform the boss as fast as we can. Let's take the elevator. Send word to everyone to secure every single elevator in this building. Our little rat will be found. If they want to play around in this building, they are going to have to go through all of us first, one of the voices said to the other. Roger, the other one agreed. The group then listened for them to leave the room. They heard the elevator ding and the footsteps enter. The elevator closed, and then there was silence. The group quietly opened the door to the janitor's closet and entered back into the lobby, panting heavily. Great, Gary muttered. Now we can't even take the elevator. We really screwed up. Do you think it would be better if we left and came back in a little bit? Serena suggested. It's too late to turn back now, Ash said seriously. Team Rocket will no doubt be stepping up on security now. It would just be harder to come in if we came back later. We have to press on. We also have our Pokemon with us to protect us from danger. Right, Serena agreed. We'll just need to be extra careful from now on. It will take more than a few rocket grunts to stop us, Gary said as they made their way to their staircase. After stopping to listen, They heard no noises or voices nearby, and decided it was now safe to go up the staircase. They crept up the staircase as quietly as they could, but still prepared for the worst. It would be naive to think their trek up to the 11th floor would go undetected, since the rockets were now aware of their arrival. They entered the 2nd floor from the staircase, which led into a very long hallway with many doors off to the side. They sighed when they realized that their journey to the top floor would be made even harder now. Silphco was a regular maze. While there is nobody here, we need to figure our best course of action from here on out, Gary suggested. What did you have in mind? Ash asked quietly. I remember the secretary saying that the workers were all being forced to perfect the master ball and are under strict watch. I say we rescue the workers first, before heading up to the top floor, Gary explained. We don't have any clues on whether workers are being kept, though, Serena pointed out. That's true. We are going to have to look for clues while we are here. My guess would be most of them are in the lab part of the building. I've heard that it was on the 8th floor, Gary recalled. Then I say we get there as quick as possible. Let's just be careful, Ash suggested. The group nodded to each other as they crept as quietly as they could down the hallway. Unbeknownst to them, there was a tiny security camera in the corner watching their every move. The group passed through the 2nd floor without any incident. They eventually found another staircase and moved up to the 3rd floor. They couldn't help but think there was something up with their trek up the Silphco going uninterrupted. They were starting to feel a little nervous. Ash, I'm starting to get a little scared. There is no way we should still be able to continue on without incident so far, Serena said nervously. I say we count our blessings, Ash mumbled as they continued along the 3rd floor hallway. Pikachu nodded its head in agreement. I wouldn't be so sure, Ash, Gary said seriously. They may be doing this on purpose. We have to expect the worst. Like what? Ash asked curiously. An ambush, Gary replied. Just keep your pokeballs within arm's reach, because things could turn south quickly. As they rounded the corner, they saw 3 rocket grunts, 2 males and 1 female, guarding the 4th floor staircase. Our first obstruction, Ash muttered. I think we can take them. The rocket grunts noticed the children and immediately reached for their pokeballs. They sent out a Golbat, a Grimer, and a Raticate, while Gary sent out his Wartortle, Serena used Charla, and Ash used Pikachu. The Pokemon went back and forth trading blows with each other, but Team Rocket's Pokemon were no match for Ash's, Serena's, and Gary's Pokemon. Ash then ordered Pikachu to use Thunder Shock to knock the grunts out before they could get away. That was a little too easy, Gary said as the group looked at the unconscious grunts. I'm still uneasy about all of this. There has to be a better way to get around this place. Serena studied the rocket grunts carefully and noticed there was the same number of males and females as there were with their group. A thought, albeit a little unpleasant, came to her. Hey guys. I have an idea, Serena spoke up. About 10 minutes later, Ash, Serena, and Gary came out of a nearby closet wearing the uniforms of the Team Rocket members they just defeated. The real rockets were kept in the closet, so they wouldn't be discovered. Ash had Pikachu hidden in his backpack. These disguises are perfect. Aside from our age, we look just like Team Rocket members, Ash said. Yep. Now going to the top floor should be much easier from now on, Serena agreed. Once the group made it to the 4th floor, they noticed a drastic change in the layout of the Silphco building. Instead of a maze of hallways and doors, they were now met with a very large room with various machines around. There were also quite few Rocket members who were standing over what were presumably Silph employees, while they tirelessly worked. The group was about to continue on when they heard a voice shout out to them. Hey. You 3. What the heck do you think you are doing over there? The group froze and looked in the direction of the voice and saw a Rocket member approaching them from across the room. Unlike any rocket grunt they've seen so far, the man coming towards them seemed to hold an air of authority around him. He was a tall man with slanted eyes and green hair, with a bit of blue to it. It was rather hard to see the style of it, because it was mostly covered by his hat. "What is it?" Ash asked stupidly, before he was elbowed by Gary. "Excuse me? Is that how you speak to an executive?" the man asked angrily once he reached them. "I mean, what is it, sir?" Ash corrected. "What is it, Sir Proton?" the man emphasized the last word. "Sorry. What is it, Sir Proton?" Ash asked again as he began to sweat bullets. "That's a little better," the rocket known as Proton answered with a scowl. "As I was saying, what are you three doing slacking off? Didn't the boss give all you grunts strict orders to either be watching out for our intruders, or overseeing production of the Master Ball?" "Yes, Sir Proton," Gary answered. "You see, we've just received orders from another executive to give a very important message to the boss." "Is that so?" Proton asked as he crossed his arms and glared. "Yes, Sir Proton," Gary answered, hoping the rocket executive would believe them. Proton studied the four for a moment, as if trying to determine if they were telling the truth. Ash, Serena, and Gary tried keep their expressions as neutral as possible despite how nervous they were. After what seemed like an eternity, Proton gave his response. "Fine," he said as he nodded. "Just make sure to hurry back to your posts." He then added, "I swear the boss must have been high on something when he allowed you kids to join Team Rocket. We are supposed to be a world-class criminal organization, not a daycare." "Thank you, Sir Proton," Serena replied as they left his presence and continued on, but were stopped by Proton calling out to them again. "Don't you dare tell the boss I said that or else. You know how scary and cruel I can be when I'm angry," he yelled. The group nodded as they hurried off, eager to get away from this Proton guy. He was already scary enough as it was without being angry. As Proton watched the three go with a scowl on his face, it soon turned into an evil grin once they were out of sight. He turned to the other grunts in the room, who were now also staring back at him with equally evil grins on their faces. Proton then pressed a button on a communicator that was attached to his wrist and spoke into it. "Archer, our little rats have just left the 4th floor. Are our preparations complete for the ambush on the 8th floor?" he asked. "Yes," came a deep voice from the other end. "Everyone is in place." "Good," Proton answered. He then added, "You know, as I was studying their appearances, one of them fit the description of that Ash Ketchum boy we've heard about lately. There was also a blonde-haired girl with him who has been reported as one of his companions. I didn't see a Pikachu with him, but I'd wager it was hiding in that backpack of his." "Really? The same Ash Ketchum the boss has taken an interest in?" Archer asked. "The very same," Proton nodded in the affirmative. "Oh, this is just too perfect. They won't know what hit them. We are going to eliminate those brats once and for all."